Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to do a bit of work in the garden. As you know, winter is coming, and so I'm just going to do some prep work. So what I'm doing today is to put some frost cloth over a few of the more tender plants or veggies. And so that's for the kumara, it's the sweet potato, and also this lemonade tree that we have, just to protect the leaves from frost burn. And then we're going to add a couple more vegetables to the garden, and they're great winter varieties, and those are spinach and broccoli. And then I'll probably trim back any of the plants that are going into a dormant status. Just take off some of those leaves and vegetation and put them into the compost. So these are the sweet potato leaves. Those are new growth, but all these dried ones, they were damaged by frost. So I'm going to cover a layer of frost fabric. I started off with pulling out the spent tomato plant, leaving behind the unripe fruits to decompose into the soil, and then moving onto the lemonade tree. I had to first spray it to remove the aphids before covering it in frost cloth. And then I moved on to the garden bed. I had to remove the weeds and grass that's been growing on it. So I used boiling water to just kill off the plant, and after that they were easy to remove. And then I went to the compost bin and collected some of the compost at the bottom. This is not well decomposed. The sawdust still looks like sawdust, so that's actually a lot of carbon. And while most people recommend not to use it because it would temporarily compete for nitrogen with the plant, I was running out of space in the compost bin, and so I had to remove some of it anyway. And then I went on to the garden bed, and first I sprinkled some lime onto the soil because my soil is slightly on the acidic side. And then I went ahead and started planting the winter veggies. And then before I put the mulch back on, I layered the unfinished compost on the top so that it's less likely to compete for nutrients with the plant. So this is really experimental. I think if the carbon isn't added into the soil, if it's just laying on top of it, it may not absorb nitrogen from the soil, but any of the decomposed organic matter in the top layer, they will get pulled down by worms or microorganisms within the soil. So once I've completed planting all of the seedlings, I reapplied the mulch, and then I moved on to making this little netting shelter for these new plants. This is so that the birds and any insects won't get to them while they're still young. So I've made a relatively simple structure. It's made of bamboo stakes and unused pipes. I cut them to length and just feed them over a pair of bamboo stakes. And this creates this structure with an arch on the top. Then it's really easy to cover with netting, any kind of netting really. I got these from AliExpress. And I secured the netting with clothing pegs. These fit snugly over the bamboo stakes and also over the pipes or the hoses. And then at the bottom, I would pin them with weed staples just to avoid the netting from flapping around. And that was pretty much the minimal prep work I did for the garden before winter. Hi guys. We'll also do a really quick garden update, and I'll show you how the plant's doing just before we go into winter. So the zucchinis and cucumbers, they're long gone, and the only one standing now is the eggplant. And I think the eggplant was a little late in the game. It's only just started to develop its fruit. I don't think it'll make it because, as you can see, these are all caused by frost burns. I also think that because the weather is a bit warmer than usual, that the bluebells, they're confused. They think it's spring and they're sprouting. Look at that. And here I've got my Chinese cabbage. So most of the year, or most of the time in summer, it just looked like this, really green, and it's opened, as you can see. But these ones, they're starting to look like the ones you get from the supermarket. And they're sort of, curling inwards and turning more of a light green, whitish color. And this is when they start to taste sweet. And that one just did that. I think a week ago it was still sort of open. So maybe these are going to follow really soon as well. And the way I harvest these, I just basically go in and I take the outer leaves every 2 weeks or so, and I use them to make kimchi. These 5 plants, they have been a really good yielding plant, and I would suggest anyone who loves kimchi to grow these. And then over here, we've got the silver beets, and they're still going. I think they're all right. They've even grown like offshoots to the sides. So I think we're probably gonna get quite a bit more out of them throughout winter. The melon pretty much stopped growing about 2 months ago. And I've got a couple of photos of the melons. I think I'm gonna try it again next year and see how we do. And then over here, I've got some bok choys, and these were grown from seeds. I put them in about a month ago, I think, and they're doing really well. I think they really like this cooler weather, and they're frost resistant because, we've had a couple of frost overs, and they're still doing well. So I think this is my go-to winter veggie. And this flower here looks like it's doing really well. It's about triple its size from when I put it in, and it's heavily flowering.